Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 71 of the road to 2K on chess.com. Today, we're going to do another recap video because the week has finished for 9-14-25 in the Lichess Leagues group. So, this week we did get all three games in. Our Lone Wolf game, which is a 30-minute plus 30-second increment game. Our series game, which is a 90 plus 30. And then our 45-45, which is exactly what it sounds like, 45 minutes with 45 seconds increments. I believe this is week 3 in the Lone Wolf, week 3 in the series, and then this is actually week 7 of 8 for the 45-45 group. So looking at this week's games, the first game we played was in the Lone Wolf group, and this was against Mr. Sivakumar, who is a 2018 classical Lichess, and we are sitting at 1830 heading into this game. What happened here in this game is our opponent played e4, and I did some slight prep, more just to see what they play. I didn't really go into any deep lines with any of these. So after e4, we played c6, knight to c3, d5, and knight f3. And with this position, now we have a two knights Caro-Kann. I think we talked about it last week as well, it's one of the Caro-Kanns that I'm probably the least confident in of all the groups. Jumped ahead there. Let's go ahead. Let's hop all the way back here. So I've been working on a few different lines here. I opted to play bishop to g4 today, just to get this pin on this knight and really try and stop the position a little bit. Our opponent played bishop to e2, breaking the pin. So at this point, I played e6, just solidifying my pawns, creating this little triangle at which I'm going to develop my pieces around and get them onto appropriate squares. He struck back with d4, which I didn't fully expect. You can see I paused a little bit if you look down at the timer here in the corner. But with that, I played bishop to b4. He played e captures d. And in this position, I really didn't know what to do. So ultimately what I decided, or kind of what I ended up doing, was I played the move c captures d4, thinking that I'm going to create a square for my knight to come to c6. The best move in the position is actually, it says e captures d5. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of last week's game. So I learned last week that I thought e captures d5 is the correct move in these positions. In this position in particular, I was actually supposed to play c captures d5 to bring my knight to f6 or c6. So just a complete misunderstanding of the position on my part. But after e captures d5, our opponent castled, and I saw that there's going to be threats where our opponent can bring the rook and then have a discovered attack with the bishop. So I played knight to f6, bishop to g5 comes out pinning my knight, and I castle just to get my king out of the center, and we arrive in this position. Now, when I look at this, I see a pretty even position. Obviously, our opponent is putting some meaningful pressure. However, our pawns are well defended. The knight should be able to jump out, and it feels pretty equal to me. Our opponent did play knight to e5, which was the best move, just coming into the position. Here, I played bishop captures e2, and our opponent went knight captures e2, getting out of the pin, and really just getting ready to bring the knight to the king side. I played queen to d6 to break the pin on this knight, at which point our opponent played c3, kicking away my bishop. I played bishop to a5, knight to g3 comes in, rerouting the knight like we talked about previously with threats of knight to f5. And so I played the move knight b to d7, not seeing an immediate threat, really just wanted to try and maybe reinforce my knight on f6. If the knight does come in, I can slide the queen over, and it connects my rooks. So I figured knight b to d7 can't possibly be a bad move. However, this immediately drops the advantage, as you can see on that right side. Is what we had to do here was we actually had to play the move knight to e4. Offering to ruin our pawn structure a little bit and to get into this bit of a weird position. But everything should be just kind of hunky-dory for us to play here. It does put the knight on a better square, so it's definitely a move for me to consider in the future. But knight b to d7, bishop to f4, and now there's discovered threats on the queen. So I played the move queen to e6, just trying to sidestep the threat. Our opponent plays rook e1, once again activating a threat on our queen. And at this point, I was trying to figure out what the way I could relieve the pressure on my position is, because then maybe I can play for a draw, if there's any openings, or at least I'm not losing, right? So I play the move, knight captures e5, fully expecting that our opponent can capture back with the rook, they can capture back with the bishop, they can capture back with the pawn, but really I'm removing some of the pressure on black position. Our opponent opts to go with bishop captures e5, and in this position I make another mistake. I should have moved the a rook over because this rook wants to help support maybe an f5 push in the future. Instead, I played rook f to e8, which is slightly wrong given an inaccuracy by the computer. Our opponent plays rook to e2, and I admittedly did not see the point of rook to e2. I figured it probably has something to do with doubling the pieces down on this file, but I didn't really see much else going on besides that. So in this position, I played bishop to b6, just trying to get my bishop on a more active square. I didn't want to bring it, obviously, to c7 because that's a one-move blunder, as well as don't really want to bring it back down to d8 because then the coordination of my pieces is just completely cut off. Not to mention that, but if I were to leave this and let's say play a move like h6, the move I was actually the most concerned about was the move bishop to c7 because the queen is hanging. However, it says just to go ahead, go into this position, and we should be just fine, if not maybe slightly worse. But I don't think I would ever play that, just giving up a full queen, especially against a stronger opponent. So bishop to b6 defends my bishop. Our opponent goes queen to d2, and I played the move c5, just completely missing the idea of the position. I was trying to create some kind of pawn break, really just trying to do anything I could here. And our opponent punishes us with rook a to e1. Now there's a lot of pressure coming down the file. I played queen to c6, which is kind of the final blunder in the position. Here, I apparently needed to play knight to e4, just giving up the pawn. But the biggest difference here is that at least now I can play a move like queen to f5 or queen to g6. And I'm surviving the position. It's not looking great for me, but I should be okay here. So after this, rook a1, queen to c6, keep an eye on the rook. Our opponent takes the bishop, or takes the knight, on f6. I take back because I can't do queen takes because it's just mate in 2 after rook captures e8, rook captures, and once again, rook captures e8. I suppose here what I was supposed to do is after bishop captures, I was supposed to take the rook first. And then after, queen captures e2, now I can't even capture back there. I just have to give up the piece and try and play on from there. So g captures f6, our opponent plays knight to f5. I really had no idea what to do here, so I just took the pawn. I completely missed the move queen to h6. There is no way to stop the queen coming to g7. There's no way for me to run my king anywhere that's helpful. I can't defend the square. So in this position, I resigned. Our opponent played at a 94%. I think we played at a 78%. So I just got smoked in Lone Wolf, and that was not the greatest start to my online classical for the week. In game 2, I was playing as the white pieces against one of the top-rated players in my little flight, Handsome Money in 1912. And all I knew about Handsome Money is that he plays the Sicilian defense. Now, the Sicilian is one of those areas where I discussed it in yesterday's recap of my over-the-board stuff. Is I just don't know theory in the Sicilian, and I find it as one of my big weak points, particularly when it comes to opening theory. So what I did was before the game, I looked at some Alapin lines. I haven't played the Alapin in many years, or maybe about 2 years now. And I thought it might be a fun little trick, see if I can't get something fun out of the opening. So our opponent hits us with c5 just like we expect. I play c3, knight to f6, e5, knight d5, d4, c captures, and knight to f3. And all of this is still theory. I knew this much of the opening, and after d6, this is where I really kind of got to my first position where I didn't know what was going on. The best move here, which I thought I remembered, but I couldn't quite figure it out, is the move e captures d6. Just taking off the d-pawn once it moves, allowing our opponent to capture back however they wish, and at that point we can actually develop with our move knight to a3, looking to go to b5, create some pressure over here. The bishop is going to come out, and development is pretty simple for the white side. However, because it's a new opening, I just went ahead and I tried to play something a little bit different. I played the move bishop to c4, attacking the knight. After the knight came here, I went ahead and slid my bishop back to b3, and I figured that if nothing else, we're in a pretty even position. So our opponent goes knight to c6. I finally decide to take the pawn on d6. Our opponent captures back with the queen, and here I play the move castles. Allowing my opponent to take the pawn if they want, it does help us to develop. The queens can come off, and I was feeling completely fine about the position. Really, my biggest goal here in this game was truly just to not make mistakes and to not create weaknesses in the position that I don't have to. So after bishop to e6, I took quite a bit of time here trying to decide what I wanted to do. I opted to play bishop captures e6. Our opponent took back with the queen, and at this point I played knight captures d4, deciding that I have the 3-on-2 that you typically want in the Alpin structure. The pawn in the center has finally been taken care of, and the material balance is back to equal. So our opponent goes knight captures d4. I go queen captures d4 with the exclusive idea that I'm maintaining the pawn structure. And after the move rook to d8, I play the move queen to b4. My idea of queen to b4 was really just to bring my queen up to maybe move square like b5 to develop the remainder of my queenside pieces as they haven't moved yet. And I figured there's nothing inherently wrong with queen to b4. Now, before I played it, the one big thing I did look at is the bishop is looking at the square b4 once this pawn moves. So at any point that this queen moves and this pawn pushes forward, it's going to be an immediate discovered attack, and I need to be mindful of that. So our opponent plays queen to e2. I play bishop to e3, kind of trapping the queen in the position, trying to, like I said, develop all my queenside pieces. e6 comes out, attacking the queen. So I played the move queen to b3, just stepping on back, continuing to defend the b2 pawn. Obviously, I don't have, queen to b5 here because his queen is defending, which is a little bit frustrating. So queen to b3, queen to c4, asking to trade off queens. And I opted to go for a little bit of a different line here. Now, what the engine suggestion is I did look at it because it's a thematic move in the Alpine Sicilian is the move knight to a3, tempoing the queen. If the queen wants to take, what we can do is we can just go ahead and take back. Our opponent can play a move like bishop captures a3. And at that point, we'll probably play rook captures, putting pressure here, and it's a tough position for our opponent to adequately defend. The best move here actually ends up being knight to c8, dropping the pawn, and white has a very comfortable position. However, what I opted to do is after queen to c4, I saw a sequence where I played bishop captures b6, trying to be a little bit tricky, removing the defender of the queen. Our opponent, a very smart player, does not miss that. They take our queen. We play a captures b3, a captures b6. In this position, my opponent offered a draw. I'm already down 30 minutes on the clock, as you can see, an hour and 10 for our opponent, 42 minutes for myself. He's the stronger player. I've been on a losing streak, particularly with my Lichess classical stuff. So after a little bit of thought, I think it was, I actually don't remember if it tells you how long it is. I think I took about 10 minutes here just deciding on the position, looking at moves like rook to a7, seeing if I had anything. I took the draw because sometimes you just don't want to lose, and it can be really, really hard when you're just getting your butt kicked and handed to you week after week. But that does it for the series game this week. Finally, actually of this morning, I played my 45-45 game against Mr. Rolly Lala. Him and I have actually played. This is our third game that we played, and he has beaten me both times that we played. What's kind of cool is that if we look at our games, and we'll look at them in just a minute, we've both grown a lot since we played in the first time, and I think it's been over the last 2 years that I played this gentleman. So I made a conscious decision. The one thing with the Lichess leagues that you'll see if you ever join is preparation tends to be a big part of it because Lichess has your opening database all set up there. I went into this game not doing any prep, and I did that intentionally because I've been trying to get out of my own head and out of the mindset that I need prep to be able to play good chess. So in this position, he plays the move d4, and I just go ahead and play d5. He goes knight to c3, which resembles kind of a Jobava London system. So I played knight to f6, defending. Bishop to f4 comes out. And thematically here, e6 is a perfectly suitable move. However, I went for a little bit more of like playing like a Slav or a semi-Slav position with the move c6, just defending the d5 pawn and preventing the knight from jumping into the position. It's a little bit passive, but really I was just trying to not create any weaknesses for myself. Our opponent goes e3. I play the move e6, creating a triangle structure. And because I was playing this kind of more like a Slav position, I was perfectly content to put my bishop on d7 and to go for some nice, slow developing moves. After knight to f3, I considered pretty heavily the move bishop to d6. However, I declined the move bishop to d6 because I didn't know what I was going to do after knight to e5. Now, apparently, I can play the move queen to c7 and be completely fine, allow it up to our opponent to see what they would like to do, and I can just continue to pile pressure on this knight. However, I was kind of worried that I was going to miss something in my calculations, so I was not feeling like going into this position at all. So instead, I played the move bishop to e7 after about 7 minutes of thought. And bishop to e7 is a passive developing move. It just defends the knight. There's ideas maybe of trying to trade off the bishop here on the g5 square. There was also ideas here of playing the move knight to h5. However, I didn't know what to do after the move bishop to g5 because I don't particularly want to play f6 and weaken my position. Apparently, I can just play queen to a5 and also be somewhat fine here, putting pressure on the knight. But it felt like an uncomfortable position, and my knight is just misplaced over here on h5. So after bishop to d3, I castle, not seeing any Greek gifts yet because my knight is on the f6 square. Knight to e5 comes in, and I immediately try and fight the knight with the move knight b to d7, simultaneously defending, attacking the knight, and eventually I would like to trade off the quite strong knight on the square e5. Queen f3 comes out, and I was not entirely sure that the queen is supposed to be here in these positions. So ultimately what I decided to do is I was trying to come up with some plan in figuring out when the correct time is to take this knight. I was a little bit worried about taking it now because after the move d captures e5, the knight is forced away. And then I got a little bit worried about moves, like queen to h5. Or the move queen to g3, both of which the bishops and the queen are just putting substantial pressure on the black position. So c5 is actually a move I came up with to try and get the center pawn to take, and at that point we could take back with the bishop and really kind of get our pieces going, try and create some threats over here on the queen side. But it also just tries to weaken the knight a little bit by removing this crucial defender. After our opponent castled, I played the move a6, a little bit of a slow move, but the idea was that after we push the move c5, or if we look at this position versus this position, is this b5 square gets very, very weak as soon as you push the pawn. And it's one thing to remember, every time that you push a pawn in a position, something is going to get weak. And in this case, it's just that square. So a6 was my slow and steady idea to stop anything from coming to that square and really just solidifying my queen side. a4 comes out, and at this point, I played the move c4. Now, in a lot of these positions, I don't love to just create a pawn chain going into nothing. However, I thought the upside of the move c4 is it forces the opponent to play bishop to e2, or unless they want to give up the bishop. And now the bishop is not threatening the h7 square, so I thought that I was doing okay here. I may not be better, but I don't think I'm necessarily doing worse. So at this point, with the pressure taken off of the h7 square, I do take the knight on e5, d captures e5, and I play the move knight to d7, threatening the knight. Now, what I thought our opponent can do here is maybe a move like queen to g4, after which it stops me from playing the move bishop to g5, because that would just hang a full piece. Instead, they played the move rook f to d1. So in this position, I did go ahead and I played bishop to g5, which is the wrong idea. What I needed to do here was I needed to try and play a little bit more actively with a move like queen to b6. This is not an easy pawn to defend. You have to play a move like rook a to b1, at which point now I can play, rook d8, knight f7, or sorry, knight f8, and defend my pieces this way. But after rook fd1, bishop g5, b3 comes out, just creating some extra threats, and I admittedly was playing this for a draw. I've been, like I said early in the video, I've been really tired of losing. Draws are not particularly fun either, but I needed to break the streak somehow. So I played bishop captures f4, knowing our opponent can take back either way. They fixed their pawn structure slightly. Now they have doubled f pawns instead of doubled e pawns. And I play the move c captures b3, just trying to simplify the position a little bit. So after c captures b3, I played queen to b6, trying to come up and attack the square. b6 was also an idea I had. I was worried it weakened the a6 pawn a little bit too much, but then you have moves like bishop to b7, threatening moves like d5. So if we just make some simple moves here, our opponent has to be pretty careful because the move e5, oh, I'm sorry, I have to defend the bishop first. So maybe queen over first, and now if they play a move, I don't know, a waiting move, the move d4 is even stronger than it was before. But queen b6 attacks the pawn. Our opponent defends with rook a to b1. I played the move queen to b4, attacking the knight, trying to maybe get my knight over here to e4 onto a strong square, which is not quite an outpost, but it's looking that way. Our opponent goes bishop to d3, saying that, hey, we can take the knight. However, if we take the knight, we're going to get hit with this intermezzo check, and our opponent is going to win the queen. So, seeing that, I played the move rook to d8, trying to vacate the f8 square. Now, in a lot of Caro-Kann Tartakower positions, when you have this pressure coming down on the h7 square, one of the moves that you can often do is the move knight to f8 to defend that square with the knight, knowing that the knight doesn't have many other places to go. So after knight to e2, I went ahead and I played the move knight to f8, defending my weaknesses. Knight d4 comes in. Once again, I can't take the knight because there's bishop captures h7 and rook captures queen. So our opponent was very, very tricky with setting this tactic up multiple times in the position. I just played the move bishop to d7, trying to develop all my pieces. My opponent goes knight to c2. I go queen to e7. And they go knight to d4. Now, I looked at the move rook a to c8. I thought that I might be able to create some pressure down the c file. At least I'm taking control of it first. However, I think this game is really one of the big lessons for myself and for other people, that your intention matters in your moves, and what you're playing for will affect how you play. So I played queen to b4. Our opponent went back to c2, and once again, I have many options. I go queen e7, they go knight d4 one more time, and this is the last chance I have where I can try and play on and play for something. But instead, I played queen to b4, draw by threefold repetition. The game ends in a draw, and I think actually at the time of recording, our team is now tied for the week, so it's down to our board one to try and solidify it for us. But that was this week in the Lichess leagues. If you have comments on how I played or how I can improve, definitely leave it on down below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, and then finally, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, and that helps you to make sure that you don't miss any of my future content. And on that note, I will see you guys on the next episode.